Coming up on Tech News Today, 63 organizations petition the US government to make NSA requests more transparent. Also, Verizon's getting in on the upgrade game, and Netflix is up for a bunch of Emmys. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, July 18th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, blog, portfolio, or online store. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT7. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Isaac Tara.
I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we try to keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting each time with the top 10 stories of the day in the news feed. Verizon announced their new phone upgrade plan, Edge, during their fairly positive quarterly earnings call this morning. Starting August 25th, Verizon customers can go on a non-contract plan where they pay the cost of the phone over 24 months and can upgrade after 6 months, although upgrading customers have to pay half the cost of the phone. So that means you have to pay off the phone if you upgrade before the 12 months. Unlike T-Mobile's Next plan, but exactly like AT&T's Jump plan, Verizon's Edge gives no reduction in monthly service costs. As for the earnings report, Verizon added 941,000 subscribers and earned $5.2 billion in profit, up 16% year over year.
Android Central has what it says are the first photos of the next-gen Nexus 7, or at least a very convincing prototype. If it turns out to be legit, the device is still made by ASUS. There should be a 16 and 32 gigabyte option, 7-inch LCD display, 1.2 megapixel front camera with a 5 megapixel rear camera. The device appears to run Android 4.3, uses micro SD for connections, has dual speakers, and possibly even 4 gigabytes of RAM. Also, another version of Android 4.3 popped up in the wild. Google Plus user Jeff Williams bought a Nexus 4 off of Craigslist, posted a screenshot of the device running Android version 4.3 and build number JWR66N. So, probably a new Android OS next week.
Yeah, key lime pie. You don't see this very often, but Apple, Facebook, Google, and Microsoft are all on the same side by signing a letter that requests the U.S. government allow the companies to give more details about government requests for user information. The letter is signed by an alliance of 63, made up of tech companies, nonprofit organizations, and trade associations. They also asked the government to issue a transparency report of its own, detailing the total number of information requests made and the number of individuals affected by each.
Hey, remember my prediction that Nokia would be in trouble and BlackBerry would stabilize this year?
Nope.
Well, good, because you can forget I said that now. After BlackBerry's wreck of an earnings report a few weeks ago, Nokia came in with a not nearly as ugly quarter. Sure, revenue is down year over year, but the loss is also down to only 115 million euros. But smartphone sales are growing. 7.4 million Windows Phone 8 devices sold in Q2. That's up from 5.6 million in Q1 and 4.4 million in Q4.
Speaking of smartphones, HTC has introduced the One Mini, a 4.3-inch version of its flagship smartphone, the One. HTC is pricing the Mini, as it says, 2 price points below the One by stepping down to a 1.4 gigahertz dual-core processor, a 1 gigabyte version of RAM, 16 gigabytes of non-expandable storage, no NFC, no optical image stabilization for the camera, and no IR blaster. But HTC says, do not fret. The One Mini will provide, quote, exactly the same experience to customers as its big brother.
Oh, good. I didn't want to fret today. Samsung just introduced the world to its 1 terabyte solid-state drive. The Samsung 840 EVO uses 10-nanometer class 128 gigabit NAND flash memory in conjunction with Samsung's MEX controller, which allows the drive ridiculous read-write speeds in the over 500 megabyte per second territory. The 1 terabyte model will cost $650 and is a part of the EVO SSD line. The smallest drive, a 128 gigabyte model, will cost $110.
CNET reports sources say Google is experimenting with encrypting all Google Drive files while stored. Now, Google already encrypts the transmissions to and from its cloud storage service. Encrypting the files while stored would prevent Google and any government that might want to look at the files from knowing what's in them. Only the user would have the key. Services like SpiderOak already practice zero-knowledge encryption, meaning only the file's owner can read the data.
The UK government says it will investigate Huawei's involvement in a cybersecurity center following a report by the Parliament's Intelligence Committee that staff were working at the base located in Oxfordshire. US politicians have worried in the past that Huawei may be a threat because of links to China's government and military, but Huawei has always denied having ties to the Chinese state and has stressed it is 98.6% owned by its employees. Doesn't have a fever either then. It also has been active in the UK after striking a multi-billion-pound deal to provide networking equipment to BT in 2005.
Got fever for freedom. More than a year after taking the first applications for generic top-level domains, ICANN has issued its first approvals. The winners, the Arabic word for web or network, game in Chinese, and Russian for online and site. These will be the first non-Latin character domain names, by the way. One loser in all this is Amazon. An ICANN committee recommended against granting .amazon to the Seattle company, as it might be confused with the Amazon region of South America.
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, because Microsoft firmly believes this because it's bundling 12 months of Xbox Live Gold with Office 365 subscriptions. This is a limited promotion that runs between July 18th and September 28th and requires you to purchase either a year-long Office 365 subscription or a 4-year Office 365 University subscription. The offer is not available in the U.S., but it is available in most of Europe, Asia, and Australia.
See, who says we get everything first? This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, blog, portfolio, or online store. We're always talking about the new features, the exceptionally well-designed templates you can use, how fast and easy it is to use. But if you're looking to make a store, you might want to check out Squarespace as well. It's integrated to work with every one of those beautiful Squarespace templates, allows sales for both physical and digital goods. So if let's say you sell music, you can sell actual good old discs if you want, maybe some collector sets, but you can also sell MP3s. You can sell hardcover books, you can sell ebooks. And Squarespace connects you to all your social media accounts so you can do all the marketing, publish to and from social media with just a few clicks. They're integrated with Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Google+, LinkedIn, and more. Squarespace integrates all your website needs into one platform: domains, design, development, commerce, hosting, 24/7 customer support. That's why we use it for Sword and Laser. I use it to sell my books. You got to check it out. You don't even have to pay anything. It's a free trial. Go to squarespace.com, sign up for a free account. No, you don't have to hand over all your personal information. They don't even want your credit card number. Just start trying it. Build a website, maybe import an old blog, and then if you decide to purchase it, remember this offer code TNT7. That'll get you 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, whether it's a monthly or an annual plan. You get 10%. So if you do the annual plan, you get 10% off the whole year, plus a free domain registration with that annual plan subscription. That's squarespace.com. Use the offer code TNT7. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. And we thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to discuss the stories of the day, very happy to have Vlad Savov, senior editor of The Verge, back on the show. Good to have you back, Vlad.
Hi, thank you. Good evening from me and good morning to you.
Right, that is right. Now, what country are you in?
I'm in the UK. I'm in London.
Oh, okay, so you're in Greenwich Mean Time. Good, that'll make it easy.
Pretty summertime, but
right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on the summertime now. That's right. Good.
Actually,
good
my oven is on Greenwich Mean Time because I have no idea how to reset its clock.
So I was right in the first case.
That's what you meant, Tom, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll get to the Verizon Edge plans in just a second, but I want to start off with this letter from Apple, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, Dropbox, pretty much everybody you can think of, whether they are actually accused of being part of the PRISM project or not, is on this. I totaled it up. It's 22 companies, 6 investment companies, and 35 nonprofits. So you've got like Y Combinator on here, Union Square Ventures. You've got the EFF, but you also have the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, the Open Government Project, American Civil Liberties Union, American Booksellers Foundation for Free Expression, all putting together this letter sent to, among others, the President of the United States, the Director of National Intelligence, the Senate Majority Leader, the Speaker of the House. It's sent to all the players from all the players, and it says, we want to get transparent about the numbers. In fact, they make the point that in criminal investigations already, they are allowed to give the numbers out. So, and that's part of the Google Transparency Report. So here's what they're asking. They want the number of government requests for information about their users made under specific legal authorities, such as Section 215 of the USA Patriot Act, Section 702 of the FISA Amendments Act, and the various national security letter statutes. They want the number of individuals, accounts, or devices for which information was requested under each authority. They want to be able to report that, and they want to be able to report the number of requests under each authority that sought communications content, basic subscriber information, and other information. And they also request that the government make an annual report that is already required by statute by issuing its own regular transparency report, providing the same information, the total number of requests under specific authorities for specific types of data. It goes on, the letter is fairly long, but it goes on to say that basic information about how the government uses its various law enforcement related investigative authorities has been published for years without any apparent disruption to criminal investigations. It says the information about how often the government is using these legal authorities is important to the American people, who are entitled to have an informed public debate about the appropriateness of these authorities and their use, and to international users of U.S.-based service providers who are concerned about the privacy and security of their communication. So it hits all the points we've been talking about these past few days. And I just want to go around the table here and ask you, how valuable would this information be if they were allowed to publish just the numbers? And what consequences will be if the government agrees to this or if it doesn't? And Vlad, I'd like to start with you.
How valuable would the information be? Gosh, I don't know. I mean, the thing for me is that what I find is all of these disclosures, in order for them to really matter, you kind of need to have actual public support and essentially public activism. We kind of saw it with the WikiLeaks disclosures to start with, way back when there was just a deluge of them, and it just kind of overwhelmed people and they couldn't focus on a single issue. With these privacy issues, again, it kind of feels like it's kind of building up into this massive information, massive interrelated topics. And again, people can't seem to be able to focus on a specific issue and drive that home to their legislators, lawmakers, etc. You do have to have public pressure. The thing is, you mentioned all of the corporate entities, Apple, Google, etc., and the fact that they're all in agreement. Well, the thing is, they don't have a downside as far as they're concerned. They already have that data on you. The only thing that can come out of this is how much of that data the government acquires, which lends them the credit of being transparent, them being the corporate companies, and doesn't really have any downside. I think when they want to exercise pressure, they don't do it in this kind of a public way. Maybe I'm being really cynical. But if you do want to have actual change affected, you do need to, get that from the people rather than corporate entities. That's my judgment.
The implication seems to be that the companies want to show a low number to say, look, they're not doing it that often. Sarah, what do you think of that, if that were the case?
Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, I agree with you that the companies are sort of like, listen, just let us publish the numbers. The companies in question, and of that list, yes, not all of them are startups. Some of them are more established companies. Some are VC companies that are funding the companies that they want to be successful and not appear like they're working too closely with the government behind the scenes. So I understand why the numbers would just be like, hey, let's be a little bit more transparent here. The government, what do you have against us being able to do this? On the government side, though, okay, well, let's say you're trying to figure out what channels bad behavior may be going through. You may not want to disclose, oh, well, it turns out that we're issuing many, many requests via Facebook and much fewer through, Google's networks, because Facebook is where all the criminals are hanging out. So there may be some pushback on that just because the government would not want to disclose why they may be requesting so much more information from certain companies than others. But in general, I don't feel like this is unreasonable, especially if you've got people who have signed this petition, who have a lot of money, who may be able to influence the people that make the laws.
Vlad may be right. It may not affect a lot of change. And Sarah's right that it certainly seems reasonable. Ayaz, do you agree?
Well, I mean, the numbers being valuable, I'm thinking it might not have an immediate impact. It's not going to change the way people perceive the whole spying program, the whole PRISM thing, beyond PR, right? It's going to look good for Google, Apple, and all these other companies saying, okay, at least they're trying to do something. But I think in the long run, it might make a difference because it's going to give more information to people. It'll always be there. So when you go to Google and you go and start digging in, like when you see all the DMCA requests and you get a different idea of places like Universal Music Group. You have a different idea of Sony. You get a fuller picture. And I think that because this will be published and it'll be on the web available, it might actually have to be a point that is brought up in future elections to see what are people's stances on what was previously completely secret. We had no idea this stuff was going on. This stuff it was published everywhere. And if that's the case and there's actual data you can draw from, maybe this will be something that allows this kind of activity to be more broadly discussed and might influence who we elect in the future.
I think they will end up probably caving in and allowing some compromise level of publication, maybe not everything that the companies are asking for. And I think it will not really end this conversation. I think people will say, okay, so what? No number is going to be so low that I can imagine that it would satisfy people that they're safe, especially people who are not U.S. citizens who are very upset about the idea that, hey, I haven't done anything wrong. Why do I have no rights under this system? Well, let's talk about something happier. Being able to upgrade your phone faster, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. Verizon now has Edge, which is the same thing pretty much as AT&T's Jump, which is the same thing pretty much as T-Mobile's Next. T-Mobile can still say that it was first. But this is Verizon's version of the no contract plan so that you can upgrade to a new phone after 6 months. This would start on August 25th and would apply to all existing or new customers except people who are grandfathered in on unlimited plans, of course, because they are the bastards of the telcos. Anyway, so Edge is a no contract plan. And as you mentioned, Tom, you can upgrade after 6 months, but you're paying for your device over monthly installments of 24 months. So after 6 months, you're only a quarter of the way paid off. If you wanted to upgrade at that point, Verizon says, well, we'll let you, but you have to pay basically the equivalent of 12 months. So you have to pay that other quarter, which would apply to half of the total device cost. So basically, unless you were just like, I hate this device, I have to have the newest smartphone, it makes a lot more sense to just wait 12 months, or else you're just paying for something that you're not using anyway. What's interesting is that Verizon had a really good quarter. I mean, it took in $5.2 billion in profit, $29.8 in revenue, even after splitting its profits with Vodafone, which has a 45% controlling stake in Amazon. Verizon itself earned $2.2 billion. So it's not as if this is some sort of like, oh gosh, we really need to rethink all of our plans because our existing plans aren't working for us. It seems to be reactionary just based on their competition. But also what's kind of interesting is Verizon activated 7.5 million smartphones, 6.4 million LTE devices this quarter. Over 51% of those activated smartphones, 3.9 million, were iPhones. Okay, well, that's new activations, but it still shows that at least as far as new customers are going, so you could kind of think of that as the trajectory, about half are iPhone users. iPhone users know that you're not going to get an iPhone less than once a year. I mean, you'd be lucky if you get it every 12 months. Vlad, does it make sense for Verizon to offer this new plan? Is it just sort of to keep up with the Joneses?
Okay, well, the first thing to say is I'm not actually qualified to speak about this because I don't have a degree in accountancy, which is what is required in order to really get to the basics of Verizon and AT&T's offers. You're very much right, Sarah, when you said that T-Mobile was first. They were first, and they were actually going for a more transparent, fairer pricing system to people. They kind of decoupled the cost of the handset from the cost of the contract and, data costs, etc. And that is actually kind of a cardinal sin when it comes to mobile carriers, whether we're talking the US or Europe or everywhere else. Their whole angle and their main way of making profits has been to get people to believe that they get the phone with the contract. Whereas, and trust me on this, 2 years ago, I spent about a week trying to find the cheapest way to obtain an iPhone in the UK. In almost those circumstances, it's better to buy the handset outright, just swallow that cost, and then get yourself a data and call plan separately. So everything that Verizon is doing right now is exactly like you were saying. They're keeping up with AT&T and T-Mobile, just in terms of relations with the public, and just to be able to say we have this variant as well. But if you actually go down and look at the numbers, I still believe that the best way to do it is get the phone, pay for it. I mean, we kind of have to swallow that. We have to accept that phones cost money. So we pay for it, we accept it. And then if you want to upgrade 6 months later, you upgrade. It still costs you. And it's more obvious, and maybe that hurts more. But Verizon and AT&T obfuscating the fact that they charge you more money is good for them, but not good for you.
Yeah, it seems like an illusion, this idea of like, yeah, you can switch every 6 months, but have you ever set up your phone for the first time and you have to do this again and again and again? If you had to do this twice a year, you might go crazy, unless there was an easy way to do this. Android kind of makes it somewhat easier. You could probably do that with iOS, but why would you do that twice a year? It comes out once a year, so there's really no reason to do that. And the thing is, Verizon and AT&T both increased their times. It used to be 20 months got you a free upgrade. Now it's 24. Now they're saying 2 years. And by the way, if you pay extra, we'll shrink it back down. It just seems like a great scam by AT&T and Verizon. I don't know what T-Mobile's upgrade numbers were like back then, but I don't know if people will actually take advantage of this. It'll be great for the company's bottom line because they have this idea of, oh yeah, I'm getting something. At least with T-Mobile's Jump, you get, I think you get insurance, which so if you break your phone, you can get a new one right away. That's kind of neat. But I just think that since smartphone upgrades are not exactly happening as quick with the U.S. customers, they're just trying to come up with a new way to get more money out of you, even though you might not even upgrade your phone after 6 months.
Yeah, and we should point out that Nilay Patel, Vlad's coworker at The Verge, has an excellent article going into AT&T's plan and why he calls it a ripoff. It's a good read over there if you haven't looked into it. Nilay isn't an accountant, but he is a lawyer. And so he's got that processing mind. He can cut through all of this stuff. I guess if I were going to pull one good thing out of the AT&T and Verizon plans, it's that at least I know exactly what I'm going to have to pay. It's not some weird early termination fee where I have to find out the percentage and this. It's clearer up front how they're ripping me off instead of hidden away.
Thank you for the choice.
Yes, exactly. Let's give some congratulations to Netflix, Ayaz. They got some Emmy nominations.
Yeah, so this is Netflix original series House of Cards got 9 Emmy nominations, including Best Drama, Best Actor in a Drama, Best Actress in a Drama, and these are nominations, of course. Arrested Development picked up an Emmy nomination for Jason Bateman. He finally got a Best Actor nomination in a comedy, 3 in total for Arrested Development. Hemlock Grove, the horror show, which I have not watched, had got 2 nominations. And this is the first time an online program has gotten nominated in such high categories, such as Best Drama here. Now, changes to the Emmy rules back in 2008 allowed internet programming to be eligible for Emmy nominations. This seems like it's a great thing. You'll be able to see Emmy-nominated series, Arrested Development. Vlad, how can Netflix really use this to get more subscribers? Because at the end of the day, that's what they want, not necessarily awards.
Well, I mean, the awards help. I can tell you that much. I was just listening to the BBC radio service today, and they mentioned them. And the thing is, if you're Netflix, you don't get on the BBC radio because there's no advertising, right? So the awards help. They help spread awareness. But also, I think we shouldn't be really surprised about this. We knew that Netflix wants to be like HBO. It wants to be this kind of a premium service and just bases distribution via the internet. And internet distribution has grown broader and broader, particularly in the United States. People are essentially migrating over to that from the TV. So it is kind of a logical progression.
Yeah,
I agree.
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. I agree. It's a logical progression. And some of the criticisms I've seen today have said, well, but HBO still has 108 nominations. Come on, Netflix only has 9. Netflix also only had 3 original shows that it could put up for consideration: Hemlock Grove, Arrested Development, and House of Cards, and they got nominated for all 3. Lilyhammer was up last year, and that was not a Netflix original. It was Netflix-funded cooperation with a Norwegian television network. So HBO has a lot more history here. It has a lot more momentum. I think for a first year, this is really good for Netflix.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I know that a lot of people kind of roll their eyes and go, oh, award shows, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that there are these nominations saying this is for excellence in programming is exactly how HBO, Showtime, AMC, I mean, that's how they started to change public perception in their infancy as well. As people started to say, well, this is actually really good stuff from experts who get to vote on things like this. So yeah, I mean, Netflix is finally in the pool with the best of television. And so going forward, it just turns into less of a, hey, did you see that cool new show on Netflix kind of water cooler conversation to Netflix has the best programming. And that turns into good revenue for Netflix because people want to continue their subscriptions.
No, YYZ in the chat room said Arrested Development won awards before, never helped with the ratings, and the show did get canceled. So the thing is, there's this a different, because Netflix isn't worried about ratings, they're just worried about subscribers. Does it make a difference whether they have these nominations, other than bringing people and saying, yeah, we have great content? Do they have to like react to anything other than subscriber numbers?
I feel like Arrested Development was an exception to what Netflix is doing. I mean, Arrested Development had this whole cult following for years after that series ended. And it was almost like, yeah, let's get the gang together. We'll produce a bunch of stuff. We'll put it out. You can watch it in a weekend. Some people thought it was great. Some people thought the show had lost something of its luster that it had in the early days. But I feel like, in general, that was sort of a Netflix saying, we're going to throw you a bone, loyal people. But for the most part, it's original programming that didn't exist in traditional TV before.
I think it's not just such a big deal that an internet company got an Emmy-nominated show. I think it's a bigger deal that an internet company seemed obvious to get an Emmy-nominated show. If House of Cards had not received Emmy nominations, there would have been an uproar. And that's what Netflix wants. They want to be seen as quality, like HBO. If they had made original shows and received maybe a scattering or no Emmy nominations, as crazy as you may think award shows are, that would have been a disaster, because everyone would have thought, oh, Netflix makes original shows, but they're not very good. Now that's the opposite. It's like, wow, Netflix makes original shows and they're high quality. And that's exactly what Netflix wants, because they want you to subscribe to see what other high quality shows they have or are going to come out with.
And just to support your point very briefly, you mentioned that they only have 9 nominations. If they had 1 nomination last year, their growth rate would be something like 800 or 900%. Again, right. I'm not that good with maths. So the trend, if you like, is all the way up. I mean, you can't draw an exponential curve with everything right up at the top. You know, you kind of need to start off with small numbers and then it grows and grows and grows. So perhaps next year, you know, those might double, triple, quadruple, depending on what Netflix does through the year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good point. Meanwhile, people are cheap. Not paying for apps anymore, Sarah Lane. What's going on with that?
That's right. App analytics provider Flurry, which is running in almost 300,000 mobile apps, has published a new report. They're pretty much focused on app price changes over time. Turns out that 80 to 84% of iOS apps were free between 2010 and 2012. By this year, it's 90% of iOS apps in its network now free. Now, of course, if you're a free app, it means you can download it for free. It might mean that the app has advertisements running inside it. It might mean that in order to really enjoy the app, you have to participate in in-app purchases. Or maybe the whole goal of the app is to push users to premium versions. But on Android, users are even less willing to pay for mobile apps. In April 2013, the average price of Android apps, which is factoring in both free and paid apps, was 6 cents. On iPhone, it was 19 cents. On iPad, it's up to 50 cents, or just people think bigger is better, I guess. But what's interesting is that Candy Crush Saga is a great example of how in-app purchasing can be a gold mine if you happen to be able to float in, let's say, a top 10 list in the App Store. According to some reports, it's pulling in as much as $633,000 per day. And then there's the other side of it, is that most apps never make it to a top 10 or possibly even top 100. Data released by Distimo earlier this year said 2% of iPhone top publishers were considered new apps, as in apps that weren't by a company that previously held a top spot. So if you're new, it's much harder to crack into that very coveted area. I don't know, though. Everybody likes free apps, right? But I think I'm more annoyed when I download a free app, and I download a lot of apps, when I realize, oh, I can't actually enjoy this for more than 5 minutes unless I participate in in-app purchases, which makes me want to abandon the app that much faster. But maybe it's the new entertainment model. We all sort of live with this in order to have that immediate rush of fun from getting a free app. Vlad, do you think that the free apps are here to stay, or is that just sort of a smoke and mirrors?
Well, you introduced it by saying people don't pay for apps anymore. I'm wondering about the anymore part. I've never bought into the idea of paying for apps. I know they're cheap, and I know it makes perfect sense if I use an app extensively to go and pay for it. But there's just that mental block for me, which is kind of irrational. You know, I spend more than 99 cents on really, really trivial things that deliver nowhere near the amount of enjoyment that a good app or a good game does. And yes, we need to support developers. And I think you made a really great point about absolutely new developers with good apps. I think there should be a channel specifically for that in app stores, whether it be iOS, Android, Windows Phone. Just say the only people who accept on this list are people who haven't had a published app previously and who actually have a good application. And then those guys can actually go and use the apps. But in terms of pricing, the trends have always been that way. iOS users have been more willing to pay up for applications. Android users have been less so. But also there are other considerations, like Candy Crush Saga, the example that you gave. Even if that app didn't make that much money, which, if you compare it to an employee of a company, $500,000 every day is makes you feel pretty bad about your own productivity. But even if it didn't make any money, it's an advertising tool. You play the game and you program their sweets and candy and whatever into your mind. I mean, I've noticed this with there was a peanut company that had a snooker game, a pool game online, way back in the day. And there's all of these ways that you can do something that is free to the end user and annoy them less than, pop-ups or constant in-app purchase demands or whatever, which I don't like. And I think you're right. If you don't like in-app purchases, if you don't like in-app ads, pay for it. I mean, that's the bottom line, really.
You're looking at 90% of iOS apps are free. iOS is such a different animal than Android. You can refund an app if you don't like it. So you pay for an app, you go, this sucks, I'm going to hit refund, and you get that money right back. iOS has that weird model where you have to either have a light model or a premium model, and you can unlock some features, but they're separate applications, I think, still. You can't just upgrade one to the other. So I'm pretty sure this is probably just reactionary to the way the iOS App Store works, is that you can't just try something out and then be reassured you get your money back. So there is that fear, like Vlad is talking about, of I don't want to part with 99 cents. I might just keep buying things. But getting that free app and then doing all these in-app purchases or unlocking extra features. I know with the iPad app Paper, that's free, but I wanted to buy all the brushes and more colors and things like that. And I was willing to pay for that because I got to try out how good the app was in the first place before getting these other features. So I think this is actually more of a reflection of how the stores work, maybe not necessarily a trend.
I think it could also be app fatigue as well. As you learn how much these apps cost month to month over the years of having a phone, you start to go, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be spending all this money on this stuff.
I was just going to mention, I think that is really the crux of the issue, coming up with a good demo model. So people can demo an application, get a really good idea of how it works, and then decide to pay for it. As opposed to, okay, I've only heard that this is a good app, and then I'm going to pay for it in advance. A lot of the time, whether we're talking desktop or mobile software, the time when I feel most like I should be paying for it is after I've used an app for an extensive amount of time and felt like, yes, this is really valuable to me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Maybe another way of coming up with money for your apps is to do a Kickstarter. That's what Ouya seems to think is necessary.
Yeah, Ouya, they love the Kickstarter. So they're going to give developers money. Now, the company announced it's going to launch a $1 million Kickstarter campaign on August 9th. Here's how it works. Developers pledge between $50,000 and $250,000. If they pledge that amount, they will receive matching funds from Ouya. Now, Ouya is going to fund this project until $1 million is spent, or they will keep funding it until August 10th, 2014, whichever happens first. And Ouya is going to give a $100,000 bonus to the one developer who raises the most. So, of course, there has to be a catch. Developers who take Ouya's money will have to take their games and make them exclusive to the Ouya for at least 6 months. There's no explanation of how long these can be exclusive. Vlad, what do you think of this promotion? What kind of games are you expecting to be developed based on this kind of model?
Well, I have to cite my colleague, Matt Bryan, who described it really well. As far as the end user, the gamer is concerned, you pay for it once and then you pay for it twice. That's what it essentially works out to, because you support the Kickstarter campaign, you support the developers, and most of these guys that are being targeted are indie developers, obviously, and they need that funding. But then as a user and a buyer of the games, you pay for it again. I mean, I'm not actually aware of what perks are being offered in this Kickstarter campaign, but the angle and the whole premise really is, let's get money to develop the ecosystem, which is supposed to be a benefit to you, and you're supposed to be kind of altruistic as a consumer, which seems to go counter to every capitalist instinct that Americans seem to have. So it's kind of an amusing, kind of a weird idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure that as a Kickstarter backer of the original Ouya, I'm all that excited to give them more money for games. I'd rather just have the games. I get their reasoning for it, is like, we want to make high quality games, and backing high quality games on Kickstarter has a precedent. So it all makes logical sense. Just when I go to my own pocketbook, I'm like, do I want to pony up money for this? I'm like, no, it's not. It's really not that important to me.
What about the public nature of this gimmick? It seems like we're going to do a Kickstarter. Couldn't they be doing this independently on their own, to have their own project to spark development? Is it necessary to do this kind of publicity stunt?
Well, it's an easier way to get the money, right? You don't have to use your own money, and it gets the word out there. It gets people talking about it, and it serves as your marketing platform.
I don't know. I mean, are we thinking that people who are not in development are really going to be participating in this that much? I mean, it sounds like this is all on the developer side. Mm-hmm. Me, as a person who may have contributed to the initial Ouya campaign because I want a console, I just sort of hope that they all get their crap together, and then I have a lot more apps to choose from.
Right.
I mean, that's how I read this. It's like, I don't know, let me know who wins, I guess. But yeah. I just want more apps.
And Ouya's rules are pretty specific when it comes to the way the games are on their console. They have to be free to play to start, and then you can actually pay to do that. Every game is supposed to be free when you try it out anyway. So if they can get more and more games on there, that'd be good. I just don't know if this is going to attract a lot, because this idea that if a developer pledges $250,000, they will match it, and they're only going to match up to $1 million. That maybe I'm being silly with the numbers. It just doesn't seem like a lot of money for a game console. $1 million for app development seems, or game development doesn't seem like a lot to get a ton of developers in. I just don't know what kind of quality games and quantity of games they think this promotion is going to bring.
All right, let's finish up our discussion stories here before we get in the randomizer with a quick look at Intel. They had their earnings report. PC Client Group revenue dropped 7.5%. Other Intel Architecture Group, that's their mobile division, dropped 15%. But Brian Krzanich, the new CEO, says, don't worry, Haswell and Bay Trail chips will save us all. There'll be a host of new clamshells, tablets, 50 new convertible 2-in-1 designs. They're going to sell from $400 for the cool stuff down to $300 for touchscreen laptops and $200 or less for the tablets. And he emphasized that, hey, they can run Android or Windows on x86. He says, we will move Atom chips even faster to our leading-edge silicon technology. No more underpowered criticisms of Atom, he promises. So round the horn again. Is this a repeat of netbooks for Intel, or are they just part of this doomed PC organization, or can they really make mobile their future? Vlad, I'll start with you again. What's your best bet here for Intel?
Well, I think netbooks might be a little bit unfair. Like, these devices are far advanced as far as netbooks are concerned. Particularly with the latest Atom chips, you're going to have better battery life. Pretty much every one of these tablets is now coming with a touchscreen. It's a case of, if it has Windows 8, you have to stick a touchscreen on it. Intel has been pushing touchscreen devices for a long time. This year is when they've really, as you were saying, with the 50 new designs, they're really becoming more of a mainstream thing. But also with x86 hardware, desktop, laptop, netbook hardware, the price pressure to go down and to compete on price is immense. So it's kind of inevitable that these guys are going to start targeting lower and lower price points. So Intel is really just predicting what guys like Acer, Asus, MSI, etc. are going to be doing. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's beautiful to have competition. It kind of brutalizes the companies. They're not particularly happy, but for the consumer, it's a good thing.
Ayaz, what do you think? If you're looking at this,
I think netbooks or any variation of a laptop, anything that can pack a giant battery in there is always a good idea for Intel. They can't get into the small devices. They can get into tablets that are around maybe 8 to 10 inches. And if they're going to say we're going to keep pushing the laptop form factor and all the variations thereof with like the transformers or the sliders or whatever the heck you're going to design them as, the real thing about Intel is they do provide power that you just don't have on other devices. But because of that, you do have the issue of battery life. But the Atom processors have gotten a lot better over the years. And if you're used to the performance of something like a smartphone, which is not exactly stellar compared to an Intel chip, with running a real operating system, I think it's good for Intel to do this. But they're kind of holding on to a past because that's what they're used to. They really need to figure out how to get themselves really in that true mobile game of phones.
Tom, I think the question was, can Intel make mobile its future? And I think Intel is making mobile its future. I mean, we don't know exactly if it means that the perception of Intel will stay as positive as an industry leader as it has in the PC market. But again, as I said, if the battery life isn't too compromised and price numbers stay competitive, I think Intel has moved into the mobile market more than ever.
Yeah. The only question is, will people buy it?
Yeah. Just to respond to that, also, there's a couple of things. Firstly, it's good for Intel that it's having to move into mobile because the way that AMD has been competing, Intel would have had massive monopoly issues and antitrust concerns on the desktop. It's just been that bad over there. There's been no competition. So it's good that Intel has to compete in some respects, but also to Eyaz's point, I don't think that this is the best form factor. Like Intel and Microsoft are really into this 2-in-1. It's both a tablet and a laptop thing. And I think from the device we've seen so far, it's neither very well. Or rather, it does neither job very well. So the best laptops at the moment that I've seen so far are things like the latest Asus ZenBook, Samsung's T-Book 9 Plus, beautifully named device. But I mean, they're really well designed. Acer Aspire S7, the new 2013 generation, and those are specifically laptops designed to be laptops. And they have much better physical construction and just feel so much better. So I still feel like you will be buying a tablet and a laptop separately. These are compromised devices. But again, if they're cheap enough, I think a whole bunch of people are going to buy them.
Yeah. All right, let's fire up the randomizer, Jason. We put another straw poll out in the chat room before the show today, and the last votes are in right now. Swedish machine that turns your sweaty clothes into drinking water in last place. Lasers that carry 622 megabit per second Earth-Moon links in second place. But winning is autonomous robots that self-assemble and take flight as one. These are, forget quadricopters. These things start off on the ground. They find each other. They hook up with little copper push buttons to communicate. Then they take off and hold their position. Now, they're not able to do everything self-directed. They need a little bit of nudging, either inside with a hand or maybe a motion control system they've used sometimes, or outside with a joystick to kind of keep them in place. But eventually, they would like to make this what they're calling a distributed flight array totally self-assembling and self-flying.
Okay, what do you do with this?
I'm kind of mesmerized.
You don't do anything. It does everything on its
own.
own.
So it puts itself together, and then we have a floating platform for... is this for that whole Pirate Bay server over the ocean thing? Or what?
Could be.
Okay.
The
limits are your
flies
imagination.
files back and forth. It's the future of P2P.
It's not sneaker net.
No more carrier pigeon, in other words.
Oh, this is the new carrier pigeon?
Yes.
Excuse me.
They also want to do in-flight reconfiguration.
Okay. I guess I was more excited about the lasers. Sorry, guys. Maybe the lasers can be attached to the drones, and I'll be very happy with it.
So you can't think of any reason why this would be valuable?
No, I didn't say that. I was just curious what they're going to use it for. I can see military applications like crazy.
Video and I'm disturbed by it, to tell you the truth, guys. This is... All I can think is, where's the wireless connection to Skynet? I mean, this is Terminator, the rudimentary stages of it.
Literally Skynet.
Yeah. So, okay, these guys aren't being terribly creative in trying to recreate, intelligent machines that will eventually take us over. But, I mean, come on, we have to give them credit. Like, all of these self-assembling robots, it kind of sounds like it's the robot's intelligence, but they're also a mark of our own intelligence and our own engineering skills. Like, we just look at them and we get freaked out about it, but it does take a lot of precise mathematics and physics and all of those skills. So if anything, they're good demonstrations of human ingenuity.
Well, maybe you could always have like a wireless hotspot that floats above you, or like a networking thing. I mean, Google's got their balloons, right? Project Loon. This could be an offshoot of that one day.
I think you just figured it out. It's your own personal cloud. It's literally a cloud that follows you around, that you store all of your information. It just hovers above you wherever you go.
All right, let's move on to...
I would trust that more than the digital cloud, to be honest.
Yeah, actually, at least you know it's there. Yeah. You can go find it or have it fly to you. Let's move on to the calendar.
Well, the Dell shareholder meeting has been adjourned, aka postponed, until July 24th. At issue is whether to approve Michael Dell's $24.4 billion proposal to take the company private, or Kyle Icahn's counteroffer. Earlier this week, Reuters had published something about Michael Dell not getting enough board approval, so he might just be buying time. But we will revisit this next week.
Yeah, they actually said we need to solicit more votes. And some of the people like BlackRock who said they would vote against it actually voted for it, it turns out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next week. Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
It's a message from David in Houston, Texas. He's talking about Elon Musk's super fast transportation system. 45 minutes to New York is not the story. Amazon package to your neighborhood distribution center in 45 minutes is where the money and the story will lead many years before people. Fewer regulations, higher profit margin, and the backing of major retailers or cargo companies will build the project. Could you imagine how much money FedEx or UPS could save by cutting their air force by 50 to 60%, and also by charging more money by having delivery in under an hour? This will be a game changer, but not for people.
I think it'll be a game changer for people too, but David's point is well taken. Don't forget the cargo aspects of this kind of thing. That's very important to it. Good stuff. Thanks, David. And thank you, Vlad, for joining us. It's great to have your insights again on the show. And you're doing some great stuff over there at The Verge. What's going on? You got anything to tell people about in particular?
Well, we just did an enormous primer on the whole PRISM spying thing, which I naturally haven't had the time to read because it's enormous, and we're busy. It's a busy time. It's funny busy time. It's July, and there's a whole bunch of news flying around the place. I mean, there was things like Nokia's earnings today. I believe Google also reported earnings today. So I think everyone's kind of finishing up and heading off to the beach next week, maybe.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to get all of the news done by August so that you know everybody can just take that month off. We'll have to see. Well, yeah, definitely check out that primer that Vlad's talking about. I read it yesterday, found it very helpful at just kind of putting it all. I knew all the pieces, but it's great at just kind of putting it all in place for you so you see how it all connects. So good job with that. Don't forget about our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com, where you can suggest stories, vote on other people's suggestions, and generally make your voice heard when we make our lineup every day. You can find us all the time at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv, or you can give us a call, leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT show. Tomorrow, we will have Darren Kitchen and Len Peralta illustrating the show again. We'll see you then.